You want all the information about the upcoming survival MMO Dune Awakening? Arrakis, Dune, Sandworms, Sandstorms and more? Then you're right here. Because in this preview we go into detail on what awaits you in Dune Awakening. Because we were already able to spend a good 100 hours in the upcoming survival MMO from Funcom, Dune Awakening, and give you our honest assessment here, whether we have a hit in the house or the whole thing is running in the desert sand. We go into all game areas, the first steps in the game, the different classes and character possibilities, as well as our first base and what you can expect, especially in the first hours. But of course, we also take a deep look at the game world, the survival aspects, the base building, crafting, the different combat mechanics and skills, the resource system, but also the social aspects such as group play, guilds and more. And all this from the preview beta version. And to take one thing in advance, fans of Frank Herbert's Dune universe or the last movies by Denis Villeneuve will not miss this game. Because you could not dive deeper into the Dune universe so far. Dune Awakening will be released after a last shift on June 5th for all pre-orders of the Ultimate or Deluxe version. For everyone else, it will start on June 10th. In addition, an open beta is planned for May, where you can take a look at the first hours of Dune Awakening yourself. And until then, we'll keep you here on the channel with extensive detailed videos on the various aspects on the run. And of course, we'll keep you free from story spoilers in the videos so you can experience the story yourself. We start with an already playable extensive character editor, whereby we can really adapt our character to our heart's desire and also simply adjust details such as noses, eyes and so. In the further course, we are then faced with some choices by the Venerable Mother. First, the choice of our home planet, whereby we first unlock unique emotes and dialogue features. These can offer different dialogue options in conversations with NPCs or be relevant for one or the other faction. But don't worry, you can't choose anything wrong here, which could stand in your way later on one of the different paths. Further dialogue features are offered by the second selection field, where we join a caste. From nobility to the lawman to the simple worker, everything is there. By the way, all different selection options do not exclude each other, so you can really choose everything, as well as your starting class. Mentor teaches us and with which class we start, whereby we can also unlock all class abilities later in the game. So don't worry, you can't choose anything wrong. But here we offer you a detailed video and some classes have advantages, especially at the start of the game. Basically, the Swordmaster offers you a close combat specialist, which should be well known from the movies. This is mainly for swords and jump attacks. At this point already the note that all classes not only have to focus on close, but also on long distance combat to be successful in the fight. The Bene Alcolyte, which can also be male, relies on the well-known voice, so rather magical abilities which can be very fast, very strong, especially at the start of the game. With the Bene Alcolyte, we are more in the shadows and attack from behind. The Mentat relies on various gadgets and tools, such as a deployable turret or a shield, behind which you can hide. The gameplay here is basically more defensive and stationary, but offers some interesting gadgets. And the conclusion is offered by the Trooper or a soldier, which especially on large caliber weapons uses various grenades and technical gadgets. The gameplay of the Trooper is rather offensive and he moves forward. And again the note, you can't do anything wrong with the starting class choice. And stay tuned for the dedicated classes video. After the character choice, we leave our Highliner and are deployed with a shuttle on the desert planet Arrakis. Welcome to Dune. And so our journey in Dune begins. Basically, you can also play Dune Awakening completely solo, because the various missions and various gameplay elements can also be done solo. But especially for the later course of the game, we recommend that you work with up to 3 friends or even join a guild. This is much more fun, but more on that later. Genre typical, we start our journey in this survival MMO as a nameless refugee who wakes up in a cave, whereby we find direct hints of the Fremen, the desert people, just minutes after the start of the game, which are currently not be found on the desert planet, or hidden. The basic gameplay is genre typical and we get various interaction options in the environment, for example by collecting items or resources and equipping our character accordingly. In the lower bar we have up to 8 hotkeys, whereby we also get an option to use the middle mouse button to get a menu, so also for consoles upcoming. As far as the game mechanic is concerned, nothing new awaits us here in Dune Awakening. Here we find ourselves very quickly if we have ever played a survival game. But the survival mechanics are much more exciting, whereby it becomes clearly relatively quickly that we wanted to pay attention to sandworms. These pose a really serious threat at the beginning, as well as water management and the way we deal with the sun. For this we have a display in the lower left area, on the one hand about our water budget, in green our stamina, in red our health and in yellow our energy supplies for various tools and gadgets. We level in Dune Awakening in a classic way. By collecting resources, crafting, completing missions as well as fighting, we get various experience points. And with this we level up, whereby the level cap is currently at 200, so still really far away. And collecting resources and crafting materials up to blueprints is one of the core elements. In the inventory or in the menu we have in the upper area not only the possibility to craft directly, without a special workbench to make simple items, but also to explore different abilities to improve our skills, our class abilities and unlock them. And so the game leads us, especially in the first 2 hours, through various tutorial missions, where we are connected with the crafting and the base building and gradually learn the skills for surviving in the desert. The resource mining is easy to do. On the one hand, there are resources that are simply lying on the ground and we can simply pick them up, but for bigger resources we need a resource tool, which is also available in different stages. If we choose this and use the right mouse button, we are shown a cut pattern, which we then follow with an active tool to completely break up and collect the resources. A nice minigame. There are various character perks and various talents, which makes the resource collection easier and much faster. In the combat system we have the possibility to go into close combat, so to fight with knives or swords, and here we have a simple block function with the right mouse button. With the left mouse button we can perform quick attacks or slower, stronger ones with the left mouse button hold. And with this we can later penetrate shields. In particular, in the starting area, the opponents do not pose a real threat and are really easy to, even for beginners. In the later course of the game, we still have the possibility to make long-range weapons such as a Mauler pistol. Also early in the game we get to know the base construction, whereby we are also made familiar with it directly by means of a mission and build a first base. By placing a building console in the buildable area, where most areas are buildable, they should not be occupied by other players, and by NPC bases we get a small part of Arrakis for us. With this we can then build our base step by step in the specified boundaries, depending on the level of our console, whereby we can only build a small base here in the standard level at first. And this is definitely necessary, as we can not only protect against wind and weather, sandworms, opponents, but also get away out of the sun during the day. You can already build your first base in a few minutes with the right resources that you find directly on site. But you have to supply them with energy, because without energy supply your structure will be attacked by other players or the sandstorms. Because in principle, the starting area as well as the starting map is a PvE area, that is, other player structures are not attackable here and you are safe from other players, as long as you supply your base with energy. In doing so, we continue to expand this base with various production sites, storage facilities and of course the possibility of filtering blood later. But we will come back to this special mechanic in detail in a moment. Because with our first base we laid the foundation to access various game mechanics, to further improve our character, to strengthen our survival skills and of course to continue writing the story, which also begins shortly after the construction. Don't worry, we stay spoiler free here. Basically and already known, it's about finding out what happened to the Fremen and we go on a search for them. For this we get an extensive mission series, which takes us through different areas, with smaller puzzles and takes us deeper and deeper into the story and the world of Dune. Here, the story is basically designed for single players, that is, you basically do the different story quests by yourself and cannot go through the areas with other players or in a group. Because here, mostly instanced areas are loaded as soon as you start the different story quests. In addition, we recommend that you complete these mission story quests relatively early, as these unlock important character abilities and offer basic options for progress. And don't worry, the level of difficulty is moderate here. Apart from the main quest, we are already going to the starting area in search of various intel points with which we can pay for various unlocks. In doing so, we make quick acquaintance with enemies that have a Holtzman shield. These are shielding long-range weapons, and we have to deactivate them in combat, one by one. In doing so, we can either go into close combat or later on various gadgets and tools. The goal is, especially in the starting area, to collect all the various intel points, so the information points which are necessary for unlocks and further character development. In addition, of course, we collect loot and the game currency Solaris. With this we can also shop at retailers. The game world of Dune Awakening is divided into different zones, where we already have 7 resource areas on the main map, which we can only gradually unlock. For this we need, for example, to get from the starting area to the next zone, a Sandbike, a first vehicle, because if we try on foot we will be eaten by a sandworm. The map size of the starting area is already immense, with 64 square kilometers, and the overall map the main map, is also much more extensive than in other games so far. Each of the resource areas has different components. In the starting area, for example, copper, followed by iron in the next area, followed by steel, and so on. Also, in addition, our items are adapted to it and also our crafting possibilities. And to get an insight of the map, especially after the recording Coriolis storms that cover the map again, we need a transmitter. With this we start a measuring drone and cover the map accordingly. And we need to repeat this after every storm. Here we not only see the different enemy camps, but also areas already visited by us and information points already collected. In addition, we get an overview of our own home base, various respawn points that we can set our vehicles. And if you play together with other players, you will also see their bases that can be unlocked for you and also usable. But we come to the different guild options, the extensive team play options in a dedicated video in detail, because that would blow the frame here. The Hagea Basin that we see here is the first starting area and already very extensive. Basically, we would estimate the story area, so with the different PvE areas, at a minimum of 50 to 100 hours of play. But Arrakis also offers various social hubs, where we can meet other players, trade, interact and also take orders from NPCs and missions. We can find them in almost every map area and offer a meeting point, found equipment or unnecessary resources to sell, and special building plans or equipment to purchase. And here we come to the faction system, because in Dune Awakening there are 2 main factions as well as the different noble houses. These are summarized in the Landsrat, a council which is especially important for the endgame area, as the dominating guilds can even influence the politics. And we can join even one of the factions, join the Atreides for example, or the Dark Harkonnen. And these provide us with additional story quests from the different factions. But also faction-less missions for the different areas can be accepted by the order boards. The mission system seems to be a bit limited and we hope for an upgrade here, because accepting and following quests is not always easy. Basically, however, the quest system works. There are extensive quest chains for different orders, simple haul and bring quests, as well as the mentioned faction quests. And of course, we have the main story quest. And these are real highlights in the game. And in addition to the different weapon-free zones, where there is trade and interaction with NPCs, there are further remote zones such as the Harku village of the Harkonnen or Arrakis as a social hub for the Atreides. But in order to get to one of these places or into the deep desert beyond the mighty shield wall, Into the PvP area and endgame area we need an ornithopter. We can then build and use it later in different areas ourselves. But this is still a good distance from our current starting area. Here you need some hours. Also in addition, we find the first class trainers in the various area, where we, especially in Hagia Basin, already find the first trainer for the trooper. Where we, no matter which class we have chosen, can also learn the corresponding skills at the end of the quest. But what would a survival MMO be without survival mechanics? And from this, Dune Awakening has some very special ones. Of course, the well-known Sandworms, which are mainly in the starting area and the smaller variant, but are basically deadly. We can trigger them fast by ourselves, by our movements in the sand, and if we find no protection on open terrain, we are dead. And here's a clear warning: if you die from a sandworm, all your items you carried with you as well as vehicles are completely gone. If you die, for example, in a fight, your equipment stays on site and you can return there after respawning and store your equipment. Another source of danger, especially at night, are the patrolling Sardaukar, who search the area via searchlights. And if you appear in one of the searchlights, you will only be captured once and have to face a small troop of Sardaukar. Especially at the beginning, these are a real threat. Basically, you should never leave your base unprepared and always have enough ammunition and equipment and items for a smaller fight. The safest time to leave your base is really at night. Because here we have different Sardaukar and Sandworms to fear, but not the merciless desert sun. Because this is one of the main threats. Not only for your water budget, which you should always keep an eye on, but also on the sun's radiation. Because here you quickly get a debuff, which not only makes your water consume faster, but also forces you to respawn quite quickly. Extended desert trips through the sun during the day should therefore always be well planned and prepared, and choose routes where you can use different shadows. But if you already received the debuff, you need a moment in the shadows, until the subsides and you are ready to go again. And depending on the clothes you wear, you consume water more or less. For example, we have the possibility, which has no armor, to partially refill your water consumption by a still suit. But how do you get water in the desert? Well, here Dune Awakening goes exactly the way that the movies or books go. And we get liquid where we can find it, and that is from opponents. Because extracting blood is one of the core features and should never be neglected. And of course, we can drink the blood directly, but we also get a poisoning and a debuff here, so don't do it. Therefore, we should filter the blood completely once later in our own base. We can then drink this water without hesitation and also accordingly via containers that we can also craft. General damage, for example through fights or falls, can be healed via various bandages until later onto various healing kits that we can craft. Some damage is healed directly and other damage over time, depending on what we use. And as mentioned, the opponents are basically sucked out. And for this bloody affair we need an extractor, which we can also craft in various expansion levels, as well as containers where we collect the blood. Our tip is to basically get a large liquid budget, especially in the later course of the game. And especially for crafting high quality items, we also need water in the base. So Dune Awakening is all about water. Don't let your opponents just lie uselessly, that would be water waste. In addition, we find in the various test labs or other dungeons again and again ways to refill water at stations or at water sources. Basically, you should always carry water with you, especially if you are out and about during the day. The various loot options, so not just boxes, but also water sources you find in a game world, can be used by all players. That means, even if another player recently visited this cave and cleared out all opponents and also looted all boxes, you can still loot the various boxes and also water supplies yourself. This also applies if you are in a group. Therefore, the fear of looting is out of place. We can then inject our collected red liquid into a corresponding blood cleaner, with which we can also inject in different stages of development in our base. Here it is then filtered up to pure, drinkable water and of course refillable water. In general, the trip to the desert is worth it, regardless of whether you are in caves, outposts, different camps or just looking for wrecks. With this, for example, you also get the opportunity to dismantle it step by step using your mining tool in order to obtain special items or rarer materials. In doing so, not only enemy camps, outposts and bases respawn, but also resource deposits as regularly new. Only the type of different resource deposits changes with each Coriolis storm. And these storms are another real danger, as you not only take considerable damage here, should you be unprotected, but you can also completely use your orientation. But don't worry, the storms usually cancel in advance and you see the distance on the minimap of your upper radar. If you still get into a storm, it is advisable to look for protection in a field gap or in a base. And the storms themselves only last for a few moments. And the longer we stay alive, the more opportunities we have to explore the different areas, caves, different testing stations or shipwrecks, and to level up our character. And of course to collect loot in order to prepare for the next areas. Here we recommend using the climbing system, which you can trigger on every wall with a double click on the spacebar, for example. If you have enough stamina, you can not only climb horizontally but also vertically, or even on overhangs. This way you not only reach the highest points, similar to an Assassin's Creed, but also the possibility to find hidden caves and collect treasures there. Exploring freely is worth it. And as long as we have enough fuel in our base and keep in mind the running time, a maximum of just about 20 days, we always have the possibility to a safe retreat. Home sweet home. This way, we craft better and better items and gradually get stronger, although we can already leave the starting area after a few hours and open to the next zone, where we necessarily need a Sandbike here, our first vehicle in the game. To do this, we unlock the necessary building plans via our research menu, where we switch the necessary information points either via a collection in different bases or via our step-up skill system. And with a little material we have the different components together to produce our first Sandbike and assemble it. The progress in the game is linear, so in the first game environment, in the copper area, we have the possibility to build a Sandbike and then advance areas with extended materials such as iron and steel to craft another vehicle such a buggy or the ornithopter, which decides the different information points, how many we have available and in which area we want to unlock different items. To build the unlocked one, we need different materials again, such as copper from the starting zone. And since a Sandbike also needs fuel, we also need a small chemical refinery. When we finally have enough together, our different Sandbike components crafted or found while looting, we can put them together. Here we use partly found components which already show some damage. Later we can of course repair, but newly produced items are always much better in condition. And with the crafting of the Sandbike, we leave the entry area, the Hagia Basin, because with it you have all the options to advance into the deeper desert and the following areas. Because then the actual journey begins. The story is continued and we come across new enemies and new challenges. Of course, the endgame content is to be expected, the deep desert, after some changes have taken place here. But as far as the current state of the game, you have at least 50 to 100 hours of fun if you want to dive deep into the desert of Arrakis, want to experience the story of the Fremen, the different factions and the survival in the desert yourself. Of course, we had the most fun in the group, where you can currently bring together up to 4 players in a group and experience the different test stations and areas directly with each other. These are also playable solo, but much harder and sometimes only with good preparation and a lot of time. The question of how the endgame PvP will turn out will be exciting, because some changes are to be expected here and possibly a faction PvP systems could be introduced. And since we have only cut many areas here, We will show you in the following videos all the details about the different classes, abilities, how they play, everything about crafting, the base building and of course vehicles, as well as various tips and tricks. How to survive better in the desert, where you can get the best loot and what you can do together. Because the survival gameplay also offers extensive options, such as how to collect water from plants or survive longer in the desert. And also the different types of weapons, from melee weapons with daggers and swords to ranged weapons or special weapons. It is also more than worth it to offer you here a dedicated video. But what are your opinions on the upcoming Dune Awakening? Have you already pre-ordered? If so, which version? Do you know which class you want to play? Let us know in the video comments, or in our Discord, or in our daily Twitch live streams. And with that, we'll see you soon again with another video about Dune Awakening. And until then, don't get eaten by a sandworm.